The U.S. Attorney General says Cole Tomas Allen is set to appear in a federal court today over the alleged attempt to target Donald Trump. Julia Manchester is a reporter with The Hill. She was at that White House Correspondents Dinner and joins me now from Washington, D.C. Quite the night you've had, Julia. When did you realize that something quite drastic was happening close to the ballroom?
Yeah, I think seconds really after we heard what sounded like gunshots. And in fact, President Trump made a comment right after the shooting when he addressed the press, or he gave an interview after, saying it sounded like a tray clinking or something dropping. And initially, that's what I felt or thought. But within seconds, we all really dropped to the floor. Many of us crawling under tables, just taking cover. And you could hear the SWAT teams and Secret Service really starting to storm the room. And, trying to get the situation under control within 5 to 8 minutes. I would say most of us were starting to stand up, but we couldn't leave the ballroom because it was essentially locked down. But it was, quite a rarity for a dinner, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, that has taken place at the Washington Hilton in that ballroom for decades now.
Yeah, and did you at any point feel that perhaps your safety might have been compromised for even a few short minutes?
I wouldn't say maybe minutes, maybe seconds. I think we heard Secret Service, take control of the situation very quickly. I think it was very alarming because we were the ballroom is down a set of stairs from where the checkpoint is, but you could hear the shots sort of carrying over. So I think they sounded a bit closer than they actually were. However, they were pretty close.
And I wonder, how long was it till you were told that there was a man who was carrying multiple weapons who was trying to get past security for access into the ballroom where you were?
We were told, we found that out, I think, within the hour. President Trump released an image on his Truth Social of the suspect being subdued by police. And you saw, other reports, naming the suspect. So we knew pretty quickly, and there was video that was released pretty quickly of this suspect storming the security barricade.
And there was that mad rush, wasn't there? I mean, for White House reporters like yourself, because I think Trump called for a press conference, and I think there was just a 30-minute notice. What was going on there?
Yeah, only 30 minutes. And remember, to get into the White House, you need a hard pass. So most of us weren't expecting to go to the White House on Saturday night. But luckily, the Washington Hilton is not far from the White House. It's probably about a 20-minute walk. But you actually saw a number of reporters taking scooters or bikes and zooming down Connecticut Avenue to the White House. My colleague luckily had her hard pass and she was able to rush over, and I was able to watch remotely to play backup. But yeah, it was very short notice. And I mean, in the briefing room itself, you saw lots of reporters in their ball gowns and their tuxedos, President Trump administration officials in their tuxedos. The First Lady was in the room, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary. So that's not something you see every day.
And I did find it interesting that, so soon after this incident that Trump would reiterate that the need for a new ballroom at the White House, which now requires congressional approval.
Yeah, look, the President Trump's argument in this, and you're hearing Republicans argue this as well, is that the ballroom would be a safe, secure place that's drone-proof, bulletproof. It could handle large amounts of people like that Washington Hilton. There's only a few other locations in Washington, D.C. that are really central enough that could host that many people. Remember, there's roughly 2,500, 2,600 people in a room for the Correspondents' Dinner. The issue, though, with that is that the White House Correspondents Association holds the dinner. It's a private event. It's not a government event. The association is not the same as the White House press team. They're two separate entities. President Trump and administration officials are invited. So, I think the association likes to keep those kinds of things pretty separate, hold the private event at a private venue or at a non-government venue, I should say. So it's unclear how that would happen, but that's the line you're hearing from Republicans. A number of Republican lawmakers this morning saying they're drafting legislation to build the ballroom or to finish building the ballroom. So we'll likely hear that more today.
And as far as the suspect is concerned, what can we expect to happen when he fronts court?
Well, we know that he's going to be arraigned on at least two charges. One, I think, carrying a deadly assault weapon with intent to use it. Another charge as well. So, I think we'll get more details then.
Yeah, of course, for you and hundreds, thousands of political reporters, this is an annual highlight for White House correspondents. I'm sure you were looking to see how Donald Trump was going to roast your community there. What are your thoughts on this happening on an occasion where you and other reporters could sit back and enjoy yourselves? Do you expect there to be a certain stubbornness that, there will be another dinner scheduled?
Well, President Trump says he wants another dinner scheduled within 30 days. It's unclear how that would happen. This is a huge event that normally takes a year of planning. Like I said, 2,600 people. It's not just journalists that attend. You have media executives, business executives, government officials, high-level administration officials attending. So it's difficult to put it together on such short notice. I do expect the dinner to go on in future years, though. It's unclear, whether the Washington Hilton or it being in a working hotel will be the venue. It's important to point out that this suspect did rent out a ballroom, did rent out a hotel room prior to the shooting. So it was relatively easy for him to get to the security checkpoint itself. So it'll be interesting to see how they, put together such an event going forward.
Yeah, and is this dinner something that you yourself look forward to every year?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, I think, to mingle with other journalists, your friends, your colleagues, but also networking. And it's not just the dinner. There's a number of parties that really start early in the week, I would say, on Monday or Tuesday before the dinner. And you're able to mingle with journalists, administration officials, strategists, really all of Washington's political ecosystem. There are critics that say that maybe there's questions about the ethics of journalists mingling with administration officials in a black tie setting and essentially entertaining them at dinner tables in this ballroom. But it's a tradition in Washington, and this year was going to be even more unique because it was the first time President Trump was attending as a sitting president.
Okay, Julia Manchester, we're really glad you're safe and look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.